Have you ever felt the aching loneliness of a city that never sleeps? Into White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky, a dreamer wanders the quiet streets of St. Petersburg, lost in his fantasies and disconnected from the world, until a chance encounter with a mysterious woman changes everything. Over the course of just a few nights, their lives intertwine in a story of fleeting love, hope, and heartbreak. Will this brief connection pull him out of his solitude, or will it leave him more lost than before? Join me as we dive into this timeless tale of longing and the power of human connection. Chapter 1. The Dreamer. Our story begins in the enchanting city of St. Petersburg, where the nights stretch long into the summer. These white nights create an ethereal glow, giving the streets a dreamlike quality. In this city lives a man, a solitary figure, whose life seems suspended between the realms of dreams and reality. The man, whose name we never learn, spends his days wandering the streets aimlessly, watching people live their lives but never participating himself. He refers to himself as a dreamer, someone more comfortable in the fantasies of his mind than in the tangible world. He is a curious figure, both deeply observant and profoundly detached. His life is filled with imagined friendships, idealized love, and scenes of joy and laughter that only exist in his mind. Yet, despite this rich inner world, he is terribly lonely. Each day, he drifts through the streets unnoticed, yearning for a connection he never finds. It is as though he is invisible, a ghost in the bustling city. His nights are even lonelier, though they hold a certain charm. He loves the white nights for their beauty, but they also intensify his solitude. One evening, while wandering through the streets as usual, something changes. The dreamer comes across a young woman standing by a railing, her shoulders shaking as she cries softly into the night. The scene catches him off guard, for it feels as though one of his fantasies has come to life. Compelled by something he cannot explain, he approaches her. His heart, long dulled by isolation, stirs with a rare and unfamiliar emotion: compassion. The woman, noticing his presence, quickly tries to hide her tears, but the dreamer is persistent. He gently asks if she is all right, his voice soft but filled with genuine concern. There is a moment of hesitation, but soon she opens up, confessing that she feels lost and alone. Her name is Nastenka, and like him, she too is trapped by her circumstances. She lives a quiet life, bound to her strict grandmother, who controls every aspect of her day. Nastenka's life, much like the dreamer's, is one of confinement and longing for something more. As they talk, a bond forms between them. It is not the kind of love the dreamer had always fantasized about, but it is a connection, something real, tangible. For the first time, he feels seen, and it fills him with an unexpected joy. The night stretches on as they continue to speak, their words flowing easily, like two kindred spirits finally finding one another in the vast loneliness of the city. Nastenka shares her frustrations, and the dreamer listens with an understanding that surprises even him. After all, he has never had anyone to listen to before. But as the night draws to a close, a pang of fear strikes him. What if this is only a fleeting moment? What if, when the morning comes, this connection will vanish as quickly as it appeared? He tries to push the thought aside, focusing instead on the present, on the simple joy of speaking to someone who understands his loneliness. Before they part ways, Nastenka promises to meet him again the following night in the same spot. With that promise, the dreamer's heart feels lighter, filled with a sense of hope that he hasn't felt in years. As he returns to his empty home, the dreamer reflects on the night's events. Could it be possible that his life is finally changing? For years he has wandered through the world, detached and invisible, but now, for the first time, he feels alive. The thought of seeing Nastenka again fills him with excitement and nervous anticipation. He knows very little about her, and yet it feels as though she is the answer to all his dreams. He can't help but wonder, what will tomorrow bring? Before we continue with the next chapter, please show some love by hitting the like button so we can create more videos for you. Chapter 2. Hope and Longing. The next day, the dreamer's mind races with thoughts of Nastenka. He spends the day in a state of restless anticipation, filled with excitement, yet tempered by a nagging fear. What if she doesn't show up? What if last night was a fleeting moment, destined to disappear like the many dreams he has clung to before? But deep down, he holds on to hope, the same hope that has carried him through years of solitude. This time, however, it feels different. This is not just another fantasy. Nastenka is real, and she promised to meet him again. As night falls, he hurries back to the spot where they had met. His heart pounds as he approaches the railing, his eyes scanning the empty street. The city's white glow surrounds him, casting long shadows, but for a moment it feels like the whole world has stopped. And then, just as doubt begins to creep in, he sees her, Nastenka, standing where they had parted the night before. Relief washes over him, and a smile breaks across his face. They greet each other warmly, as though they have known one another for years. For the dreamer, it feels natural, almost magical, to be in her company. He is drawn to her in ways he cannot fully explain. She seems to understand his soul, and though they have only spent one night together, he feels more connected to her than he ever has to anyone else. As they begin to walk together, Nastenka speaks of her life with a new openness. She tells him more about her strict grandmother, who keeps her on a short leash, always watching her, always controlling her movements. Nastenka is a prisoner in her own home, yearning for freedom, just as the dreamer has longed to break free from his loneliness. But there is more to her story than just her grandmother's overbearing nature. Nastenka is in love. She had met a lodger, a man who once rented a room in her grandmother's house. They had grown close, and soon a deep affection blossomed between them. The lodger promised to marry her, to take her away from her stifling life, and to start a new one together. But just as their love began to bloom, the lodger left St. Petersburg for a year to pursue his fortunes elsewhere. He promised to return, and Nastenka, filled with hope and longing, has waited faithfully for his return. As Nastenka recounts her story, the dreamer listens intently, though each word feels like a dagger to his heart. He realizes that the bond he has felt with her, the connection that has awakened something deep within him, is not shared in the same way. Nastenka's heart belongs to another. She is not the free spirit he had imagined, but a woman deeply in love, waiting for her beloved to return. The dreamer's hopes begin to fade, but he hides his disappointment, unwilling to shatter the fragile connection they have formed. Instead, he offers her his support, becoming her confidant and friend. He listens as she speaks of her lover, of the dreams they had shared, and the life they had planned. The dreamer's heart aches, but he cannot bring himself to turn away. For even though Nastenka loves someone else, the time they spend together fills the empty void within him. He has lived his entire life in dreams, and for the first time, he is part of someone else's story. Even if he cannot have her love, he can still be close to her, and for the dreamer, that is enough, at least for now. As the night wears on, Nastenka confesses her fears. What if her lover does not return? What if he has forgotten her or found someone else? She is torn between hope and despair, much like the dreamer himself. He reassures her, telling her that her love will return, that he will keep his promise. But as he says these words, a bitter irony settles within him. He is helping her hold on to a love that isn't his, a love that keeps her just out of reach. The night ends, and they part ways once more, with a promise to meet again. The dreamer returns home, his heart heavy with conflicting emotions. On one hand, he is filled with joy at having met someone like Nastenka, someone who has brought light into his otherwise shadowed existence. On the other hand, he is crushed by the realization that the love he has begun to feel for her will never be returned. Nastenka's heart belongs to another, and no amount of dreaming can change that. But still, he clings to hope. Perhaps things will change. Perhaps her lover will never return, and in time, Nastenka will come to see him, the dreamer, as more than just a friend. He knows it is a foolish hope, but he cannot help himself. After all, dreams have been his only companions for so long. Now, for the first time, he has someone real to dream about. As he drifts off to sleep, he imagines a future where Nastenka is his, where they walk the streets of St. Petersburg together, not as friends, but as lovers. The white nights, which once symbolized his loneliness, now seem to glow with possibility. The dreamer knows that reality often disappoints, but for now, he is content to live in the fantasy. It is all he has ever known. Chapter 3. A Dreamer's Heart. The next day, the dreamer is consumed by thoughts of Nastenka. He knows she loves another, yet the time they spend together fills him with a warmth he has never felt before. He clings to the hope that maybe, just maybe, things might change. Perhaps her lover will never return. Perhaps she will realize that the dreamer has been there for her all along. These thoughts swirl in his mind as he prepares to meet her again that evening. As the sun sets and the white night casts its pale glow over the city, the dreamer makes his way back to the spot where they had parted the night before. His heart races with anticipation, and when he finally sees Nastenka standing there, waiting for him, it is as if the world has come alive again. Her presence is like a balm to his loneliness, and for a brief moment, he allows himself to believe that anything is possible. As they walk together through the quiet streets, Nastenka opens up even more, sharing the details of her life, her dreams, and her deep love for the lodger. Each word she speaks about her beloved is like a weight pressing down on the dreamer's chest, but he hides his pain, determined to be her friend and confidant. He listens as she speaks of the future she hopes for, a future where her lover returns and they are finally free to be together. The dreamer knows that he is not part of that future. He knows that Nastenka sees him as nothing more than a friend, a shoulder to cry on. But still, he clings to hope. He tells himself that there is a chance, however small, that things could change. Perhaps her lover will disappoint her, and in that moment of vulnerability, she will turn to him. It is a desperate, foolish hope, but it is all he has. As the night wears on, the dreamer becomes more and more conflicted. On one hand, he is grateful for the connection he shares with Nastenka. She has brought meaning to his life, a sense of purpose that he has never known before. On the other hand, the love he feels for her is growing stronger with each passing moment, and the pain of knowing it will never be reciprocated is almost unbearable. At one point during their conversation, Nastenka turns to him with a look of deep gratitude. She thanks him for being there for her, for listening to her, and for giving her hope when she needed it most. The dreamer's heart swells with emotion, and for a brief moment he wonders if she might feel something more for him. But then she speaks again of her lover, and the dreamer's fragile hope is shattered. He tries to hide his disappointment, but Nastenka is perceptive. She asks him if he has ever been in love, and for the first time, the dreamer hesitates. He could tell her the truth, that he is in love with her, that he has been from the moment they met. But he doesn't. Instead, he deflects, telling her that he has always been a dreamer, living in his own world, far removed from the realities of love and relationships. It is a half-truth, but it is enough to satisfy her curiosity. As they continue to walk, the dreamer feels a growing sense of dread. He knows that their time together is limited. Soon, her lover will return, and when that happens, he will be cast aside, forgotten. The thought of losing her fills him with a sadness deeper than anything he has ever felt before. But for now, he tries to focus on the present. He savors every word she speaks, every moment they share, knowing that it could be their last. When they finally part ways for the night, the dreamer walks home in a daze. His mind is a whirlwind of emotions, hope, despair, love, and longing all mixed together. He knows that he is setting himself up for heartbreak, but he cannot help it. For the first time in his life, he has found someone who understands him, someone who brings light into his dark, lonely world. Even if that light is only temporary, he is willing to hold on to it for as long as he can. As he lies in bed that night, the dreamer imagines what might happen if her lover never returns. He pictures Nastenka turning to him, realizing that he has been there for her all along, and together they build a life filled with love and happiness. It is a beautiful dream, one that he knows deep down is unlikely to come true, but he holds on to it nonetheless. After all, dreams have always been his refuge, and this one, however improbable, is the most precious of all. Do you want to improve yourself daily? Subscribe to our channel now and get free audiobooks every day. Chapter 4. The Heartbreak of Reality. The dreamer wakes the next morning with a sense of unease. The joy he once felt when thinking of Nastenka has been replaced by a creeping anxiety, a fear that the illusion he has built around her is about to crumble. He tries to push the thoughts away, telling himself that tonight will be just like the others. They will walk together, talk, and perhaps in time, she might come to care for him as he does for her. But deep down, he knows that something is about to change. As the day passes, the dreamer becomes more agitated. He replays their conversations in his mind, wondering if he had missed any signs, anything that might suggest that Nastenka felt something more for him. But the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that her heart has always belonged to someone else. He was only a temporary solace for her, a friend to lean on while she waited for the man she truly loved. That night, as he makes his way to their usual meeting place, the dreamer's heart is heavy. He tries to remind himself to enjoy whatever time he has left with Nastenka, but the weight of his unspoken feelings threatens to overwhelm him. When he arrives, Nastenka is already there, waiting with an excited look on her face that only intensifies his dread. Something is different tonight. He can feel it in the air. As they begin to walk, Nastenka seems almost giddy with anticipation. She barely contains her excitement as she turns to the dreamer and announces that she has received a letter. Her lover has returned to St. Petersburg. He wants to meet her tomorrow, to reunite after their long separation. The dreamer's heart sinks. He tries to smile, to act happy for her, but it takes every ounce of strength to keep his emotions in check. The one thing he had feared most has come to pass. Nastenka, oblivious to the storm of emotions swirling inside the dreamer, continues to talk about her lover, how she knew he would return, how she had never lost hope. Her words are like knives, each one cutting deeper than the last. The dreamer nods, forcing himself to listen, to be the supportive friend she believes him to be. But inside, his heart is breaking. All the dreams he had built around her, the fantasies of a life they might have shared, crumble to dust. As they continue to walk, Nastenka senses his quietness. She stops and looks at him, her brow furrowed with concern. "What's wrong?" she asks, her voice soft and filled with genuine care. The dreamer hesitates. He could tell her the truth, confess his feelings, and lay his heart bare. But he knows that doing so would only complicate things. It would hurt her, and it wouldn't change anything. Her heart belongs to someone else. "I'm happy for you," the dreamer says at last, his voice barely above a whisper. He forces a smile, though it feels like a lie. Nastenka, relieved, smiles back and thanks him for his kindness. She tells him that he has been a true friend to her, someone she will never forget. The words sting, but the dreamer tries to focus on the fact that, for a brief time, he was important to her. Even if he was only a temporary figure in her life, he mattered. The rest of the evening is a blur. Nastenka continues to talk about her plans to meet her lover, how she hopes everything will go as they dreamed. The dreamer listens, nodding and offering words of encouragement, though his mind is elsewhere. He is already grieving the loss of her, knowing that after tonight, things will never be the same. The closeness they shared, the connection that had brought him so much joy, is slipping away. When they part ways that night, Nastenka gives him a warm hug and thanks him again for being there for her. She promises to tell him all about her reunion with her lover, to share the happy news once everything is settled. The dreamer nods, forcing himself to smile one last time. As she walks away, he watches her go, feeling as though a part of him is leaving with her. The walk home is a painful one. The city, which had once seemed so full of possibility, now feels cold and empty. The dreamer's thoughts are consumed by what could have been. He imagines a life where Nastenka had chosen him, where they had spent their days together, exploring the city, laughing, and sharing their dreams. But he knows that this life exists only in his mind. The reality is much harsher. He is alone again, just as he was before. As he lies in bed that night, the dreamer tries to come to terms with his heartbreak. He has lived his entire life in dreams, and now he must face the reality that not all dreams come true. Nastenka has chosen someone else, and no amount of wishing or hoping will change that. For the first time, he allows himself to feel the full weight of his loneliness, and it is almost unbearable. But even in his sorrow, there is a strange sense of acceptance. The dreamer knows that, for a brief moment, he had something real. His connection with Nastenka, though fleeting, was a reminder that he is capable of feeling, of loving, of being seen. And though it is painful, it is also beautiful in its own way. The white nights, once symbols of his isolation, now represent something more. A time when he experienced love, however brief. As he drifts off to sleep, the dreamer wonders if he will ever meet someone like Nastenka again. Perhaps he will, or perhaps he is destined to live the rest of his life in dreams. Either way, he knows that he will never forget these nights, these moments when his heart was full, even if it ended in heartbreak. Chapter 5. The Morning After. The dreamer wakes the next morning with a strange emptiness inside him, as though something vital has been taken away. The weight of the previous night's events presses down on him, but there is also a sense of finality. Nastenka is gone, in spirit, if not yet in body. She is with her lover now, or soon will be, and the brief window in which the dreamer held a place in her life has closed. He gets up and begins his usual routine, wandering the streets of St. Petersburg as he has done so many times before. But today, the city feels different. The white nights, which once seemed so filled with beauty and potential, now appear cold and indifferent. The light of dawn seems to mock him, casting a pale glow over the empty streets where he and Nastenka had once walked together. The dreamer reflects on his time with her, replaying their conversations in his mind. But now, there is a sharp edge to the memories. Every smile, every word of gratitude she had offered him, is tinged with the bitter knowledge that she had never seen him as anything more than a friend. The dreams he had nurtured so carefully have shattered, leaving him with nothing but the fragments of a fantasy that was never meant to be. As the day wears on, the dreamer walks aimlessly, lost in his thoughts. He knows that Nastenka will meet her lover today, that by the time the sun sets, her life will have changed forever. She will no longer be the lonely, uncertain girl he met on that first night by the railing. She will be reunited with the man she loves, and the dreamer will fade from her memory, just another passerby in the story of her life. Yet despite the pain of this realization, the dreamer cannot bring himself to regret the time they spent together. For a brief moment, he had shared something real with Nastenka. Perhaps not the love he had dreamed of, but a connection nonetheless. In a way, he had helped her find her happiness, even if it meant sacrificing his own. And though it hurts, there is a certain nobility in that, a bittersweet satisfaction in knowing that he had been there for her when she needed him most. As evening falls, the dreamer finds himself returning to the spot where he had first met Nastenka. It is a strange compulsion, as though he is drawn there by some invisible force. He stands by the railing, looking out over the city, and for the first time in days, he feels truly alone. The streets are quiet, the white nights casting their usual glow, but now they seem empty without Nastenka by his side. He closes his eyes, letting the memories wash over him one last time. He recalls the way she smiled when she spoke of her lover, the way her eyes lit up with hope when she received his letter. He remembers the way she had leaned on him for support, how she had thanked him for being her friend, for listening when no one else would. These memories, though painful, are precious to him, and he holds on to them tightly, knowing that they are all he has left. And then, just as he is about to leave, he hears a familiar voice call his name. He turns, his heart skipping a beat, and there she is, Nastenka, standing just a few feet away, her face flushed with emotion. For a moment, he cannot believe it. What is she doing here? Shouldn't she be with her lover, beginning the life they had dreamed of together? But as she approaches, he sees the tears in her eyes. Something is wrong. Nastenka quickly explains that her lover did not show up. He had promised to meet her, but for reasons she cannot understand, he has disappeared again, leaving her heartbroken and confused. She doesn't know what to do or where to turn, and in her moment of despair, she came looking for the one person who had always been there for her, the dreamer. The dreamer's heart breaks for her, but he cannot deny the glimmer of hope that sparks inside him. Could this be the moment he had longed for? Could Nastenka finally see him as more than just a friend, now that her lover has let her down? He tries to comfort her, telling her that everything will be all right, that he is here for her no matter what. And for a brief moment, it seems as though things might change. Nastenka leans on him, grateful for his presence, and the dreamer dares to imagine that perhaps, just perhaps, she might turn to him for the love she needs. But then, just as quickly as the hope appears, it is snatched away. Nastenka's face brightens, and she suddenly exclaims that her lover is back. She runs towards him, leaving the dreamer standing alone once more. Her lover has returned after all, and with him, all the dreams the dreamer had clung to are extinguished. He watches as Nastenka embraces the man she loves, her joy radiating from her in waves. She is happy, and that is all that matters to her. The dreamer stands there, numb, as Nastenka waves goodbye to him, thanking him one last time for being such a good friend. And just like that, she is gone, walking away into the night with the man she has always loved. The dreamer watches them disappear into the distance, his heart heavy with the weight of unspoken feelings and unfulfilled dreams. In the days that follow, the dreamer retreats back into his solitary life. He wanders the streets as he always has, but now, the city feels emptier than ever. The white nights, once filled with the promise of connection and love, now only serve to remind him of what he has lost. He thinks of Nastenka often, wondering if she is happy, if she remembers him, if she ever thinks about the brief time they spent together. But he knows that, in all likelihood, she has moved on, her life now filled with the love she had always dreamed of. And so, the dreamer returns to his old ways, living in the world of his imagination, where dreams can come true and heartbreaks are easily forgotten. But deep down, he knows that something has changed. He can no longer lose himself in his fantasies as easily as before, for now he has tasted something real. The connection he shared with Nastenka, though brief and unrequited, has left an indelible mark on his heart. As the final white night fades into dawn, the dreamer stands by the railing where it all began, looking out over the city that has both sheltered and isolated him. He knows that life will continue as it always has, that he will go on dreaming, even though those dreams will never be as sweet as the time he spent with Nastenka. But he also knows that for a brief moment, he had experienced something real, something that will stay with him for the rest of his life. And in the quiet of the morning, as the city slowly wakes around him, the dreamer finally understands that not all dreams are meant to come true. Some are simply meant to be cherished, to remind us of what it feels like to hope, to love, and to lose. If you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed to our channel and especially like this video so we can make even better audiobooks for you.